Hello, my name is Hannajane Prichet. Thank you for being here today. My project is titled Understanding Patterns of Extraterrestrial Phenomena, an exploratory spatial analysis of UFO sightings throughout the contiguous United States from 1910 to 2014. This topic has always fascinated me, so I'm ecstatic to be able to turn this lifelong fascination and borderline obsession into a master's project. Well, let's just jump right in. 2021 is the year of disclosure, with the 9-page Department of Defense report on unidentified aerial phenomena getting released, and the Washington Post recently stating both former CIA directors were referring to Air Force and Navy pilot videos that have surfaced in recent years showing unexplained objects on radar traveling at unusual speeds and performing aerial maneuvers that defy logic when compared with what even the most advanced military planes are known to be capable of. It seems that this project is quite timely. So the thesis of this master's project is to analyze data to look for patterns and relationships between UFO sightings and population density, population movement over the last century, and UFO sightings relationships to military installations across the contiguous United States. To achieve this, 3 separate analyses were performed. This presentation will begin with a short overview of the methods and data, and then move on to brief explanations of each of the 3 analyses that were performed. We will then follow up with the results of the 3 analyses, and then we'll follow with a conclusion. So, the UFO sightings data that was used for this project was data from the National UFO Reporting Center. It was geocoded and time standardized by a user on GitHub, who then published the data on the cloud sharing platform for the public to use. It's because of this open and free data that this project was able to happen. The military installations data came from data.gov and the other data layers, including census data from Esri's Living Atlas. The data was projected into USA Contiguous Albers Equal Area Conic and Geographic Coordinate System, NAD 1983. The data was clipped to the contiguous US after latitude and longitude were corrected in Excel, and then I was able to start with the first analysis. So before we jump right into analysis 1, I wanted to talk, I wanted to show you some of the descriptions that were attached to the data. So the first one being, it looked like a natural object, but it didn't follow the laws of gravity. 2 massive booms which shook the windows, followed by a bright light which flew across the sky, then reversed course, headed back to the way it came from. 3 triangular forms moved quickly and in sync before disappearing, planes seemingly chasing. Groups of orange glowing lights flying and darting around in the sky, yet staying together in a group. 3 gold objects in a triangle formation all move in separate directions during a full moon, and one disappears and comes back. Bright triangular shaped objects move at a ridiculous speed across my window. So now we are going to move on to analysis 1. Analysis 1 is titled Density and Distribution of UFO Sightings. The goal of this first analysis was to gain a general understanding of density and distribution of sightings across the contiguous United States. First up, we have our distribution of sightings map. This map is plainly showing all sightings reported in the contiguous US from 1910 through 2014. It was amazing to see that this phenomenon reaches so far and wide, both spatially and temporally. The data was projected into USA Contiguous Albers Equal Area Conic because this projection more accurately represents distribution and density. Now we have our Kernel Density Map. This map is showing density of sightings from low to high. Kernel density was used because it calculates a magnitude per unit area from a point, in this case, using the kernel function to fit a smoothly tapered surface to the points. The tool calculates the density of features in a particular neighborhood around the input features. In this case, those input features were the UFO sightings points. Next, we have our Clerk Map. This map is showing UFO sightings per 100,000 people by county. A standard deviation classification scheme was used where sightings were normalized by population. This classification scheme showed below and above average places where sightings were happening. Now we have our overlay map that we're going to talk about. This map is showing population density by county with the kernel density map of sightings overlaid on top. Now we have our Excel animation. This was an animation that was made in Excel showing sightings through time. The temporal aspect of this data is a very vital piece of this project, and I thought it would be interesting to see how the volume of sightings has changed over time. You can kind of see here that around 1960 is when the volume of sightings started to grow exponentially. We can see hotspots of sightings popping up in New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Houston, so large urban areas. And to conclude analysis 1, we have a few reports that were generated within Business Analyst. So 3 reports were created: a community report, a business report, and a demographic report. What I found interesting was that the top 10 counties with the highest rate of sightings per 100,000 people were counties where white collar work was the predominant type of work. With Business Analyst, I was able to generate a chart of income differences and population differences by county. So now we move on to our second analysis, which is our spatial temporal analysis. This analysis focuses on comparing the mean centers of 2 primary data sets, the UFO sightings data and the population density data, based on decennial intervals. Sightings data was separated into 9 subgroups of relatively even distributed sightings through time due to different volumes of data earlier on in reporting. First, a mean center is a point constructed from the average X and Y and, if available, Z values for the input feature centroids. For this analysis, only X and Y were utilized. So here is the mean center analysis. As you can see, population is decennial, while sightings are split into years according to volume of data within each subgroup. This gave a more accurate representation of the mean centers of sightings over time. So now we move on to our last analysis, the military installations buffer analysis. This third analysis shifts focus to look at relationships between sightings and military installation points using a multiple ring buffer. A multiple ring buffer creates buffers at specified distances around the input features. I created a 10, 20, and 30-mile buffer around these military installation points. This is the map that was created using the multiple ring buffer around those military installation points. So now we are going to move on to the results of each of the 3 analyses, and then we will follow with a conclusion. So just to circle back, the central thesis of this master's project was to analyze data to look for patterns and relationships between UFO sightings and population density, population movement over the last century, and UFO sightings relationships to military installation points across the contiguous United States. The following are the results that were made. First, we're going to start with the results from analysis 1. The kernel density map shows that sightings follow population except the 4th largest city, Houston, which I found interesting. For the Clerk map, we see that population density seems to follow kernel density map of sightings. It's hard to tell without further analysis here, though. We also see that sightings are occurring in heavily populated areas. There was a total of 9 counties that were above 2.5 standard deviation, but the counties that have the highest frequency of sightings are Los Angeles, Maricopa County in Arizona, and Cook County in Illinois. These counties are twice more likely than average to have a sighting. So if you really want to see a UFO, these 3 counties are your best bet. This overlay map reveals sightings are occurring heavily in the Southwest and Northeast, and it does show major populated cities in the US is where sightings are occurring. So by this map, we are able to see a clear pattern emerging that population and frequency of sightings are related. So for the sake of time, I'm only going to show the last 10 seconds of this animation. We see in the last few years, the volume of sightings growing at an exponential rate, and I believe this phenomena will only grow due to less stigma surrounding reporting. We can see that 2021 median household incomes are relatively similar for all 10 counties with the highest rates of sightings per 100,000 people. We can see that that 8 out of 9 of these counties are above average in the 2019 US median household income. The top 10 counties that have the highest rate of sightings per 100,000 people all have populations above 1 million. New York County and Snohomish County are the least populated out of all 10, and Los Angeles is the highest populated. For analysis 2, the spatial temporal analysis using mean centers reveals that population is moving west in a linear fashion, while UFO sighting centroids are more distributed over time. The multiple ring buffer analysis around military installations was by far the most difficult analysis. The outcome that was revealed was that sightings were more frequent within the 30-mile buffer, meaning the further away, the more frequent sightings were occurring. In conclusion, it was found that there appears to be a relationship between population density and UFO sightings. There are similarities in the demographic characteristics of the population where UFO sightings were frequently recorded, such as white-collar workers, high population, and above average income when compared to US median household income. Population is moving west in a linear fashion, while sighting centroids were more distributed over time, not revealing a clear concrete pattern. And last, sightings were more frequent further from military installations. I highly recommend future analysis be done. There were quite a few other variables in this data set that were not discussed that I think are vital to understanding this phenomena. One variable was shape of craft. It would have been great to do an analysis to see if shape of craft in region had any kind of relationship. So I really do hope that analysis in the future might go into this. And with that, I conclude this project. So thank you so much for joining.